July 17th, 1866. A low, damp fog clung to the grass along the Bozeman Trail, and the air tasted of gunmetal and horse sweat. You are standing ankle-deep in the morning chill, the horizon a pale smear where the Powder River flats give way to rolling buttes. Men move like ghosts. Blue-coated soldiers from Company C of the 18th U.S. Infantry, their cartridge boxes smelling of grease, their leather boots sucking at the sod. Captain James Reynolds stands apart from them, the flat brim of his forage cap damp with condensation. He lifts a hand and barks orders that come out as an exhalation. Beside him, Lieutenant Samuel Cooper checks the elevation on a bronze field piece, a hardy half-wheeled 12-pounder the men call the Nap, though the years have nicked the bronze to a dull, forbidding hue. Across the shallow rise, 3 patchwork camps of Lakota warriors are already awake. Teepees stitch the horizon. Ponies feed with their heads low. Figures wrapped in robes and hair streams move with fluid, watchful purpose. The soldiers have come to escort a wagon train, to lay down a picket line, to coax safe passage where the Bozeman Trail cuts through hunting lands. Both parties know the uneasy mathematics of this landscape. A single misstep in timing or pride, and a skirmish will swell. Private Oliver Bates wipes smudge from the sight of his Springfield rifle and glances toward the cannon. The barrel oozes a faint scent of lard from its recent firing. Corporal Thomas Lynch, grease black on his knuckles from tamping, tells a joke about the pig-tailed hitch that refuses to hold a limber in place. It falls flat because the men have not yet shaken themselves free of the morning's tension. The cavalry lieutenant is missing. Rumor says he was outsized by 2 riders at dawn. Captain Reynolds tightens his jaw and looks south where a low cloud of horse's breath rises like mortar smoke. The first shots of the morning are not smoke and flame, but a sudden chorus of whistles, Lakota scouts communicating, invisible as wind. A rider appears on a ridge, then another, the horses moving with a dancer's balance. From the soldier's perspective, the cavalry looks ragged, outnumbered. From the Lakota's view, the wagons are clumsy and fat as beached whales. A small, sharp sound splits the air. A single howitzer booms from the soldier's right flank. The blast exhales the fog, and for a moment everything is etched in a brighter, cruel light. Hehaka, an archer warrior known among his band as White Elk, crouches beside a boulder. He is neither young nor old, a decade and change of battle lines marked in the set of his face, the silver thread in his hair. He carried a lance, a short knife-like pistol, and a shield patched with porcupine quills. Today, he also wears the weight of a story already beginning to form in the mouths of those who will see it. He had slept little the night before, listening to the elders sing of the earth's stubbornness. He smells smoke from the soldiers' cooking fires and the tang of their metal. He hears the drone of a man's voice, Captain Reynolds, and feels the itch of obligation. When the call goes up to advance, the soldiers wheel the Nap into a field position. A gunner, Sergeant Matthew Horn, lays in a charge. The cannon belches flame with a copper taste in the throat of every man within 50 yards. The projectile, not a round shot meant to kill at great distance, but a spent canister scavenged from a previous engagement, screams and thumps into the slope where Hehaka and his warriors move like reeds. Time seems to narrow. Men blink. The smoke is a curtain, and behind it a single terrible sound, a collision, a hollow thunk, a body folding. Hehaka takes the blow at nearly point-blank range. The spent cannonball, rounded, pitted, its edges dulled from previous impact, finds his chest where bone and hide meet. For a breath, the world spins into a single silver pinhole of light. He falls as if the earth reached up and dragged him down. His throat releases a sound, not quite a scream, not quite a laugh, and the taste of metal floods his mouth. Around him, the world becomes a halo of frantic motion. The Nap's crew hollering over smoke, Private Bates's fingers white on his musket, Lieutenant Cooper calling for a ceasefire to tend the wounded. You see blood bloom across Hehaka's shirt like a dark spreading moon. the men who watched it happen, some who have known him for seasons, others who will only ever know the single instant, take a half step back. Superstition, always quick to fill the cracks where certainty fails, begins to whisper. An old sergeant spits and crosses himself. A young private cannot keep his hands from trembling. The Lakota around him shout, but their voices are a thread in the gale. The soldiers think it is finished. They do not yet understand that a story is beginning, that a simple, awful act is about to be remade into legend.
For a heartbeat, nothing moves. The cannon smoke drifts in slow ribbons over trampled grass. The soldiers' ears ring from the blast, and even the horses seem stunned into stillness. One might think time itself had paused out of respect or fear for the moment unfolding. Then, impossibly, Hehaka stirs, first a twitch of fingers against the dirt, then an elbow pressed beneath him, muscles trembling as he drags breath back into his lungs. His chest heaves like a bellows fighting a dying fire. The cannonball, still warm from its sling, lies half buried beside him, smeared with blood and hair. Captain Reynolds blinks once, hard, as if to clear some phantom vision. "Christ almighty," someone mutters beside him. Hehaka rises to one knee. His hair hangs across his face, stuck there with sweat and blood. His ribs must be cracked, splintered even. His breath whistles through torn flesh and swollen cartilage. But he does not collapse, does not cry out. Instead, he reaches for his shield. The rawhide disc had been flung several feet away in the blast. He drags it back with a grunt, fingers curling around its grip. His other hand closes around his lance, dragging the iron-tipped weapon through the mud. Private Bates, who had been loading his Springfield to finish the job, stops. The ramrod freezes in his hand. "Is he getting up?" Corporal Lynch breathes. No one answers, because now Hehaka is standing, not straight. He sways, shoulders hunched, blood sliding down his chest in rivulets, but upright nonetheless. His feet plant wide on the earth, his arms rise. He lifts his lance toward the cannon crew like a conductor calling his first note. And he roars. Not a word, not even a threat, not even a challenge, just sound, raw, ragged, terrible. A sound that doesn't belong to a man struck dead on by artillery. It belongs to something older, something you can't kill with iron. Lieutenant Cooper, suddenly aware of the goose flesh rising across his neck, whispers, "Reload the gun." But his men hesitate. Sergeant Horn stares at the warrior with wide, glassy eyes. "Lieutenant," he whispers back, "I saw that ball hit him square. Should have—" "I said reload, damn you!" But several men recoil, stepping away from the cannon as though it had become a cursed machinery. One crosses himself, another mutters a prayer in Irish. Across the field, the Lakota warriors, who had frozen too, stunned by the impact, now erupt into furious exultation. Hehaka tilts his head back and bellows again. Then he charges. His legs pump like pistons, each stride leaking more blood into the grass. His shield rises to guard his heart. His lance lowers like a spear of judgment. The soldiers break. Some fire wildly, their bullets kicking up dirt. Others fall backward, scrambling to reload or retreat. The cannon crew abandons the nap altogether, leaving it half-loaded and forgotten in their panic. Captain Reynolds tries to rally them. "Hold the line! Form ranks!" But even he feels it now, deep in his bones. A primordial dread, a whisper of every old-world tale told around winter fires. Spirits wearing the flesh of men. Warriors who could not die until they took someone with them. And in that instant, every soldier watching believes the same terrible thought. That cannonball had not stopped him. It had woken him. Hehaka's feet hammer the ground with the rhythm of a war drum.
each stride punctuated by the wet smack of blood-soaked moccasins against earth. The fog, still hanging low across the Bozeman Trail, seems to part in deference to him. He is no longer simply a warrior charging an enemy position, he is a storm given human form. Private Bates fires first. His Springfield cracks, muzzle flash recoiling against his shoulder. The shot flies wide, zipping past Heihaka's ear and tearing a strip of rawhide from his shield. The Lakota does not slow. "Reload! Reload!" Captain Reynolds shouts, though the command feels pointless. His men are firing in staggered panic, too fast, too frenzied. The volley becomes a chaotic drumbeat of smoke and fear. Bullets bite into the ground near Heihaka's legs. One grazes his thigh, kicking up a spray of flesh. Another pings against his shield with a sound like hail striking tin. His frame shudders with each impact, but his pace only quickens, as if pain is kindling rather than hindrance. To the soldiers, it appears madness. To his people, it is proof. From the ridge, a chorus of Lakota war cries rises in answer. Riders begin to descend from the high ground, first a few, then dozens, hooves flinging mud as they surge forward like unleashed current. They ride low and lethal, faces painted in streaks of ochre and ash. The bluecoats falter. A young private, barely more than 16, throws down his rifle and bolts for the wagon line. Corporal Lynch stumbles back, tripping over a fallen picket log. Sergeant Horn, who once boasted he'd seen cannonballs tear men in half at Shiloh, now stares at the advancing warrior with slack-jawed disbelief. "Shoot him!" Lieutenant Cooper roars, pistol leveled with both trembling hands. He fires. A plume of white smoke erupts from the revolver's muzzle. The shot strikes Heihaka's shoulder, spinning him off balance, but he recovers before he even hits one knee. His lance whips forward like the tongue of a striking serpent, and it finds flesh. The steel tip punches into the side of a soldier, Private Bernard Grant, who had been backing away, bayonet still fixed to his rifle. The blow lifts him from the ground, spine arched like a bow, before he collapses in a tangle of limbs. Heihaka's roar rolls across the field again, darker now, less mortal, more myth. Captain Reynolds feels something shift inside him, some tether to logic, to discipline, snap loose. "Fall back! Form a second line!" But there is no line forming. There is only retreat. The soldiers scatter like quail flushed from brush, dashing toward the safety of the wagons and their crude breastworks. Some fire backward as they run, sending stray rounds that strike nothing but air. Behind them, the Lakota riders crash into the flank with savage coordination. Bullets become arrows, rifles become lances, screams become thunder. Heihaka, breath ragged and lungs rattling like stones in a drum, does not chase the fleeing men. Instead, he turns toward the abandoned cannon, the bronze 12-pounder that had attempted to kill him. He stops before it. His chest rises and falls in jagged rhythm. He wipes the blood from his lips with the back of his hand. Then, with slow deliberation, he plants his lance in the ground beside the cannon's wheel. A claim, a message, a warning. Behind him, the battle rages on, but in that single gesture, warrior standing over cannon like victor over slain beast, a legend crystallizes. Even the fog seems to hold its breath. Heihaka stands before the cannon like a sentinel, every breath rattling like broken pottery shifting in a crate. His ribs are surely fractured, perhaps even punctured, the skin beneath his shirt slick with mingled sweat and blood. But his posture is unbowed, his stare fixed. To the soldiers retreating toward the wagons, he is no longer a man, he is an omen. Captain Reynolds reaches the hastily erected barricade of crates and wagon wheels, chest heaving as he scrambles behind it. His hands shake as he reloads his Colt revolver, fingers fumbling brass cartridges into the cylinder. He glances back over the barrier. Heihaka,
has not moved from the cannon's side. The captain curses under his breath. Why in God's name is he just standing there? Lieutenant Cooper slams a cartridge into his Spencer carbine. He's claiming it, he replies quietly. That gun's his trophy now. Reynolds feels his cheeks go cold despite the sweat trickling down them. The cannon, his lifeline, his leverage, had been abandoned. He had ordered it. He thought it strategic. Now, it looks like surrender. A soldier beside him, a fresh-faced recruit named Miller, trembles so violently that his bayonet clatters against the crate. His pupils are wide as wagon wheels. "Sir, is he dead already? Or are we firing at a ghost?" Reynolds snaps. He's flesh and blood, and flesh bleeds. But even as he says it, doubt scratches at the back of his throat like a swallowed thorn. Because the cannon crew had watched the impact. They had heard the wet crack of bone. And yet, here he stands. Beyond the barricade, the Lakota riders tear through the flanks, routing isolated soldiers in short, brutal clashes. One trooper is dragged from his mount by a warrior, wielding a wing-feathered club. Another falls beneath a horse's hooves, his screams cut short by a descending tomahawk. But the center, where Heihaka stands, remains eerily still, as though the battle itself respects the circle drawn by his presence. Then, something shifts. A Lakota warrior rides up beside him, Black Fox, his younger cousin, bow drawn tight. He pauses beside Heihaka, glancing at the blood-soaked elder. Heihaka does not speak. He does not gesture. He simply points, slowly, with 2 fingers toward the barricade. Black Fox nods. The signal spreads like fire in dry grass. Lakota archers and riflemen reposition, forming a crescent around the abandoned cannon. Their movements are not wild nor frantic. They are deliberate, ceremonial. Every arrow notched, every rifle leveled, at a single unspoken cue, they unleash. The air becomes a swarm of death. Arrows streaked like locusts, bullets crack from Henry repeaters, scavenged off fallen pioneers. The barricade erupts in splinters and screams. Private Miller, still kneeling, clutches his chest as an ash-shafted arrow blooms from between his ribs. Lieutenant Cooper ducks too slow. A lead slug carves a trench across his temple, flinging him sideways into the dirt. Reynolds fires blindly over the crate, each shot cracking with desperation. "Hold your ground, for God's sake! Hold!" But God had already taken his hands from this field. For the first time in his military career, Captain James Reynolds feels the icy certainty that he is witnessing not merely defeat, but divine rebuke. The cannon had spoken once that morning. Now a warrior struck by its wrath speaks back with silence. Captain Reynolds feels the splinters of shattered crate bite into his palms as he crouches behind the barricade, lungs seizing with powder smoke and panic. Around him, the barricade is dissolving, not from force of impact alone, but in spirit. The men behind it are broken reeds in a storm. Some try to reload. Others simply huddle, hands clamped over their heads as arrows thump into the wood around them. One soldier, eyes wild, clambers over the backside of the wagon wall and runs. No orders given, no permission sought. He disappears into the fog, boots slapping mud like a metronome of desperation. No one calls him back. Lieutenant Cooper, bleeding from the scalp, staggers upright and braces his rifle across the wagon bed. He squints through the smoke, breathing like a bellows. There, by the cannon, Heihaka still stands. His body is trembling now. One arm hangs lower than the other. Blood drips from his fingertips with the slow rhythm of a leaky cistern. But he stands. His head is tilted slightly back, nostrils flared as though tasting the air. His eyes, dark as wet flint, are fixed on the barricade, not with rage, but with judgment. Cooper feels his trigger finger tighten. He could take the shot. The target is clear. He lines up the sights. And in that instant, Hehaka smiles. Not wide, not boastful, but a thin, knowing curve of the lips. Cooper's shot goes wide. His hands shake so hard he drops the rifle altogether. Captain Reynolds slams his fist into the wagon bed. "Damn it, hold your aim!" But it is too late. A ripple of dread has become a wave. Soldiers shrink from their posts, unwilling to expose themselves even enough to fire. All along the line, discipline dies. The Lakota press forward, not recklessly, but like wolves tightening a circle. Black Fox leads riders along the flank, hoofs thundering. Two warriors dismount near the cannon, kneeling beside Hehaka with the reverence of acolytes near a sacred altar. One presses a hand against Hehaka's shoulder, murmuring something low and urgent. Another offers a skin of water. Hehaka does not drink. Instead, he lifts his lance once more, pointing it, not at the soldiers, but skyward. A single cry bursts from his throat, not as fierce as before, but deeper, older. It vibrates in the bones. That sound breaks the last thread of resolve holding the bluecoats together. "Retreat!" Captain Reynolds finally roars, the word torn from him like confession. He does not wait to see if it is obeyed. He runs. The barricade dissolves into chaos. Boots scramble. Rifles are abandoned where they fall. Some men drag wounded comrades. Others flee alone. The retreat is not orderly. It is not tactical. It is primal. A sheer flight from what the human mind cannot reconcile. A man struck by thunder who refused to fall. Behind them, the Lakota do not give full chase. A few riders harry the fleeing line, picking off stragglers. But most remain near Hehaka, as though guarding a holy site. The cannon, once the soldiers' pride, now stands like a captured idol. And Hehaka, blood-soaked and swaying, leans against it like a staff. His breath rattles. His knees tremble. But he will not fall. Not while enemy eyes still watch. The last echoes of gunfire fade into the hills like ghosts seeking rest. The battlefield settles into a strange hush. Not peace, but reverence. Smoke drifts lazily across the grass. Crows begin to circle overhead, slow and patient. The Lakota warriors gather around the cannon as if encircling a sacred tree. Black Fox dismounts and strides toward Hehaka, eyes shining with awe. A younger warrior reaches to steady him, but Hehaka swats the hand away with a look as sharp as flint. He will not be carried. He will walk. With a slow grimace, he pulls his lance from the earth. His legs tremble beneath him, but they obey. He pushes off the cannon's wheel and takes one step, then another. Each movement is agony, felt by every man watching, even from afar. His breath wheezes like wind through torn canvas. His hands shake. Blood clings to him like a cloak. Yet he walks. Not toward the enemy. Not toward the bodies of the fallen, but toward the ridgeline where his people waited that morning in the mist. His people part before him like water around stone. Some reach to touch him. Others press painted hands to their chests in silent praise. No one speaks, because some moments do not belong to speech. He passes Black Fox, who bows his head, not in sorrow, but in reverence. He passes the younger warriors, who look upon him not as kin, but as omen. He passes old men who have sung of such deeds, but never dreamed to witness one. Step, step, step. When he crests the ridge, he finally stops. The sky breaks above him, sunlight pushing through thinning fog, and for an instant he stands in a golden haze. Heihaka lifts his lance one final time, pointing it toward the distant line of blue-coated soldiers fleeing across the plains. Then, with the same slow grace with which he defied death, he lowers it. He turns and walks out of sight. Word of what happened on July 17, 1866, did not stay confined to the Bozeman Trail. Before the week was out, soldiers in distant posts were whispering of the warrior who took a cannonball to the chest and kept fighting. Some swore he was not flesh at all, but a spirit in human shape. Others insisted he had swallowed the cannon's wrath and spat it back. Whether they believed or feared him, one thing became certain. The U.S. Army had faced many enemies before, but never one who refused to die when death itself came roaring. In the lodges of the Lakota, elders spoke his name with song. Children listened wide-eyed, imagining the thunder that struck him and the roar he gave in return. Women stitched the deed into quill work, drums beat his rhythm. Heihaka's ribs would heal crooked. His scars would last forever. And so would his story. For on that morning, amid fog and flame, a man became something more. Not just legend, but warning.